Admiral Kira Voss stared at the holographic display floating above her command table. Watching the last transmission from Colony Meridian fade to static, 3 million human souls, children, teachers, farmers, artists reduced to electromagnetic noise in the span of 18 minutes. The Vithkari had been thorough. They always were. How many worlds now, Kepler? She asked her intelligence officer, though she already knew the answer carved into her bones like fresh scars. Commander Rain Kepler's weathered face remained stone still as he consulted his datapad. 17 confirmed genocides across the outer rim. Admiral estimated casualties, 42 million civilians. His voice carried the weight of every death. The Vithkari aren't taking prisoners or demanding surrender. They're sterilizing every human settlement they encounter. Voss nodded slowly, her cybernetic eye whirring, as it processed tactical data streaming across her neural interface. The bridge of the UES Retribution hummed with barely contained fury. Every officer, every technician, every Marine aboard had lost someone to the Vithkari's systematic extermination campaign. The alien species had emerged from the galactic core 6 months ago, with technology that made human weapons look like stone knives. And they had one simple message: humanity was a cancer that needed excision from the galaxy. What's the status of our fleet? Voss asked. Lieutenant Commander Enzo Marchetti looked up from his tactical station, his scarred hands dancing across holographic controls. 9th Fleet reports ready for deployment. Admiral Crenshaw's 7th is holding position at the Kepler defense grid. We have approximately 800 ships of the line, including our newest dreadnoughts. 800 ships against an enemy that had casually vaporized the combined 3rd and 5th fleets at the Battle of Proxima without losing a single vessel. The mathematics were brutal, but Voss had spent her career turning impossible odds into Pyrrhic victories. This time, she had something different in mind. And our special project? She asked, turning to face Dr. Nalani Okafor, the head of Human Defense Initiative's most classified research division. Dr. Okafor's dark eyes held secrets that could crack worlds. Project Samson is operational. Admiral, we've successfully weaponized stellar engineering on a scale never before attempted. The prototypes performed flawlessly during testing on the dead systems in Sector 7. Casualties during deployment, estimated 97% mortality rate for deployment teams. The energy requirements are substantial. Okafor's clinical tone couldn't quite mask the horror of what they were discussing. Each Samson device requires a crew of 50 specialists. None are expected to survive the activation sequence. The bridge fell silent except for the steady thrum of the ship's fusion reactors. Every officer present understood the implications. Humanity was preparing to cross a line that would redefine warfare itself, not just between species, but between the concepts of civilization and annihilation. The Vithkari have shown us exactly what kind of war they want, Voss said, her voice cutting through the tension like a plasma blade. They want extinction. They want to erase every trace of human existence from the galaxy. She paused, letting her words sink into the souls of everyone listening. Very well. We'll give them a war of extinction. But they seem to have forgotten something crucial about humanity. What's that, Admiral? Kepler asked. Voss's smile was sharp enough to cut through titanium plating. When we decide to destroy something, we don't leave it halfway broken. We don't leave survivors to rebuild. We don't leave hope. She gestured to the star charts, displaying Vithkari Territory 63 systems glowing like malevolent eyes across the galactic map. We're going to teach them what total war actually means. Every Vithkari star will burn. Every world will crack. Every ship will become debris. The holographic display shifted, showing the elegant death dance of Project Samson massive stellar manipulation devices designed to destabilize stars from within, causing them to nova on command. Humanity's answer to genocide wasn't mercy or negotiation. It was making very certain that when the war ended, only one species would be left to remember it. The used Vindication dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethmer system like an avenging angel wrapped in titanium and righteous fury. Captain Dexmero watched through his ship's sensors as the Vithkari patrol fleet detected their emergent 6 sleek vessels that looked more like living organisms than starships. Their biometallic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that served as both communication and intimidation. Range to primary targets? Murrow asked, his augmented reflexes already calculating firing solutions. 12,000 kilometers and closing, reported Gunnery Chief Unisato. Enemy vessels are adopting attack formation. They're not trying to communicate. Good. Neither are we. Murrow's fingers found the activation switch for Project Samson Device Alpha, a 10-meter sphere of exotic matter and controlled antimatter, housed in the ship's heavily shielded cargo bay. Weapons free. All hands, prepare for combat acceleration. The first Vithkari ship opened fire with weapons that defied human understanding of physics, coherent streams of what appeared to be liquid starlight that cut through the void at near luminal velocities. The beams struck Vindication's deflector screens and scattered into brilliant cascades of lethal radiation, screens down to 60%. Sato called out as the bridge shook under the assault. Return fire. Vindication's massive railguns spoke in unison, hurling depleted uranium penetrators at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic projectile struck the lead Vithkari vessel and simply vanished, absorbed by some form of energy sink that converted their momentum into harmless electromagnetic discharge. Direct hit, no effect, Sato reported, her voice tight with disbelief. Their defensive systems are negating kinetic impact completely. 2 more Vithkari vessels flanked them, their weapons carving through Vindication's armor like hot knives through flesh. Atmosphere vented from hull breaches as emergency bulkheads slammed shut, trapping entire sections in vacuum. The casualty reports began flooding in immediately. Engineering reports primary power coupling severed, called out Lieutenant Vale. Cross from the damage control station. We're running on auxiliary fusion only. Weapons efficiency down to 40%. Murrow watched 30 of his crew die in real time through his neural link, their biosigns winking out like candles in a hurricane. The Vithkari were systematically dismantling his ship with surgical precision, targeting life support and weapon systems while leaving the engines intact. They wanted Vindication disabled, not destroyed. They want prisoners, he realized aloud. Intelligence extraction. The thought of Vithkari interrogation techniques made his blood freeze. The species had demonstrated their creativity in the recorded messages from captured human colonies' methods of pain extraction that transcended physical torture and delved into neural manipulation that could drive entire populations insane before death finally took them. Captain, Dr. Elena Vasquez called from her science station. The Samson device is reaching critical resonance with the system's primary star. We have approximately 7 minutes until the stellar core destabilizes beyond our ability to abort. 7 minutes. Murrow looked at his tactical display showing the 6 Vithkari ships, methodically crippling his vessel. Standard doctrine would demand he activate the device immediately and ensure their mission's success, even if it meant sacrificing his crew to the aliens' revenge. Instead, he made a different choice. All hands, abandon ship, emergency evacuation. Protocols, now. His voice carried across every speaker on the vessel. This is not a drill. You have 6 minutes to reach escape pods. Sir, Sato looked at him in confusion. The Samson device doesn't need us to activate. It needs us to not interfere with its countdown. Murrow's smile was grim as understanding dawned on his crew's faces. But first, we're going to give these bastards something to remember us by. He triggered the ship's self-destruct sequence, not the clean nuclear detonation used for disabled vessels, but the dirty antimatter cascade that would convert Vindication's entire mass into pure energy. The countdown began immediately. Ramming. Speed. He ordered. Target the largest Vithkari vessel. All power to engines. Vindication surged forward under maximum acceleration, her damaged hull groaning under forces that would have liquefied unaugmented humans. The Vithkari ships scattered as they realized his intention, but physics and momentum were on humanity's side now. The collision lasted 0.003 seconds. The explosion lit up the entire system like a newborn star, vaporizing the Vithkari vessels and crippling a third. The remaining aliens retreated to a safe distance, their weapons no longer firing from his escape pod. Tumbling through space among the wreckage of both fleets, Murrow watched Kethmer's star begin to flicker. The Samson device had done its work perfectly. In 6 hours, the star would nova. In 8 hours, every Vithkari installation in the system would be reduced to constituent atoms. The war of extinction had begun. The Vithkari response came with terrifying swiftness. Within 72 hours of Kethmer's star going nova, 18 human colonies simply vanished from all sensor readings, not destroyed in visible combat, but erased so completely that even their orbital debris had been systematically vaporized. The aliens had escalated to true extermination protocols. Admiral Voss stood in the war room aboard the UES Nemesis, studying the holographic galaxy map that showed the spreading infection of dead systems. Red markers indicated human colonies under attack. Black markers showed worlds that no longer responded to any form of communication. Blue markers represented Vithkari systems that humanity had successfully sterilized. Using Project Samson. The score was depressingly one-sided. Humanity had managed to nova for Vithkari stars. The aliens had erased 47 human worlds in retaliation. Their technology is adapting faster than our projections indicated, Dr. Okafor reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion. She'd been awake for 6 days straight, coordinating the deployment of increasingly desperate variations of their stellar engineering weapons. The Vithkari are now intercepting our Samson devices before they can achieve stellar resonance. Success rate has dropped to 12%. Casualties for deployment teams, Voss asked, though she dreaded the answer. 100% mortality. On the last 8 missions, the aliens aren't just destroying our devices, they're hunting down and capturing our specialists for interrogation. Intelligence suggests they're learning to reverse engineer our technology. From the crew's neural patterns, Commander Kepler stepped forward, his face grim. Admiral, we've received a transmission from the Vithkari. They're offering terms. The central display shifted to show a creature that defied comfortable description. Something between a crystalline insect and a geometric nightmare. Its multifaceted eyes reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and vibrate directly in the listener's bones. Human swarm, the Vithkari hierarchist began, its translated words carrying undertones of disgust and clinical fascination. Your species demonstrates crude cunning in its death spasms. We acknowledge your capability to wound us, though your methods are those of disease rather than war. The creature's head tilted at an angle that would have snapped any vertebrate's neck. We offer cessation. Surrender your remaining populations for processing, and we will ensure swift neural extraction rather than the prolonged harvesting we have employed. Thus far, your genetic templates will be preserved for study. This is generosity beyond your species' merit. The transmission ended with an image that would haunt humanity's survivors. Vast processing stations in orbit around Vithkari worlds, where millions of humans hung suspended in biomechanical cocoons, while alien machinery slowly extracted their consciousness, their memories, their very souls for analysis. Before discarding the emptied husks, processing Lieutenant Commander Marchetti whispered, his augmented combat reflexes twitching with barely controlled rage. They're not just killing us, they're farming us. Voss felt something break inside her chest, not her heart, which had already been destroyed watching human worlds die, but something deeper, some final moral restraint that had kept humanity's response merely genocidal rather than truly apocalyptic. Dr. Okafor, she said quietly, what's the status of Project Erebus? The scientist's face went pale. Admiral, Erebus isn't ready for deployment. The cascade calculations alone could. I don't care about calculations. I care about results. Can we deploy it? The prototype exists, but the consequences would be unprecedented. We're talking about weaponizing dark matter itself, creating artificial black holes that could theoretically consume entire galactic regions. The margin for error is 0. Voss finished. There is no margin for error, because if we fail, there won't be a humanity left to make errors. She turned to address the entire command staff. The Vithkari want to process us like livestock. They want to extract our consciousness and discard our bodies like empty containers. She gestured to the display showing human casualties numbers that had climbed past 200 million confirmed dead. They had made their position clear. This is no longer war. This is extermination versus extermination. The question isn't whether we can win, it's whether anything will be left alive in this galaxy. When we're finished, Admiral, Kepler said, carefully, deploying Erebus could potentially destabilize the galactic core itself. We could trigger a chain reaction that what? Kills everything? Voss's laugh was sharp and bitter. Look around you, Commander. They're already killing everything. The only difference is whether we die on our knees or on our feet. She turned back to the star map, watching red markers blink out of existence in real time as more human colonies fell to Vithkari. Processing fleets. Signal all surviving fleet elements. New operational parameters. Total warfare protocols are now in effect. No prisoners. No negotiations. No mercy. And Erebus? Dr. Okafor asked. Begin final preparations. If the Vithkari want extinction, We'll give them exactly what they asked for. Voss's smile held the cold mathematics of mutual annihilation, starting with their home system. The war was about to become something that would make genocide look like a mercy killing. The Vithkari homeworld of Tethanakri hung in space like a diseased jewel, its surface covered in geometric cities that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns visible even from orbital distance. Around it, a defense fleet of 300 vessels maintained perfect formations, living artwork that represented 10,000 years of military evolution. Fleet Admiral Jorik Kane studied the tactical display from the bridge of the UES Apocalypse, humanity's first and only Erebus-class vessel. The ship itself was less warship than delivery system, a massive framework of exotic matter generators and dark matter containment fields wrapped around. The most dangerous weapon ever conceived by human minds. Status report on the Erebus device, Kane asked. Dr. Naya Petrov, the lead physicist for Project Erebus, consulted her readings with hands that trembled from exhaustion and stimulants. Dark matter accumulation at 92%. The artificial microsingularity is stable within acceptable parameters. Once we release containment, we'll have approximately 14 minutes before the event horizon expands beyond our ability to escape. 14 minutes to create a black hole in the heart of enemy space, watch it consume their homeworld, and flee before it devoured the apocalypse as well. The mathematics were brutal, but Kane had spent his career turning brutal mathematics into dead enemies. What about their defense fleet? 312 vessels, Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Commander Lucia Santos. They're maintaining defensive positions around critical infrastructure. Energy signatures suggest they know we're here, but haven't identified the nature of our weapon. Kane nodded grimly. The Vithkari had learned to respect human ingenuity after losing 8 of their systems to stellar engineering, but they couldn't possibly comprehend what humanity was preparing to unleash. Erebus wasn't just a weapon, it was a fundamental violation of physics itself, a way to weaponize the very structure of space-time. Signal the strike fleet, Kane ordered. Begin diversionary assault. Make them think we're attempting another Samson deployment. The attack began with textbook precision. 37 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace at maximum range and immediately began launching kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads at the Vithkari defense perimeter. The aliens responded exactly as predicted, concentrating their forces to repel what appeared to be another stellar engineering attack. But as the battle raged, something went terribly wrong. Admiral, Dr. Petrov called out, her voice tight with panic. We're reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. The Vithkari have some kind of, oh god. The enemy's secret weapon revealed itself as space itself began to twist around the human fleet. Gravity wells appeared and vanished seemingly at random, crushing ships in a ball of compressed metal or stretching them beyond their structural limits. The Vithkari had weaponized space-time first. Hull breach on decks 7 through 15, Santos reported as the apocalypse shuddered under gravitational stress. That shouldn't have been possible. We're losing structural integrity. The exotic matter containment fields are fluctuating. Kane watched 18 of his ships die in seconds, their crews reduced to organic paste as artificial gravity fields compressed them beyond human endurance. The Vithkari weren't just defending their homeworld, they were demonstrating technology that made humanity's weapons look primitive. Dr. Petrov, can we deploy Erebus under these conditions? The gravitational interference is affecting our dark matter accumulation rates. If we release now, the microsingularity might not achieve sufficient mass to become self-sustaining. We could end up with a gravity bomb instead of a black hole. Casualties from a gravity bomb? Everything within 50,000 kilometers dies immediately. Everything within 200,000 kilometers dies slowly as their atomic structure breaks down. Kane looked at the tactical display showing the Vithkari homeworld with its billion inhabitants, the defense fleet with its perfectly coordinated formations, and the human strike force being systematically annihilated by weapons that treated physics like a suggestion. That'll have to be enough, he decided. All ships, emergency withdrawal to minimum safe distance. Prepare for Erebus deployment in gravity bomb configuration, sir. The casualties will be acceptable, Kane finished. Signal Admiral Voss. Tell her that if this doesn't work, humanity needs to prepare for species extinction within the month. The artificial microsingularity roared to life as its containment fields collapsed, immediately beginning to devour the exotic matter generators that had created it. Space around the device began to fold in on itself, creating gravitational forces that made the Vithkari's weapons look like toys. The first Vithkari ships to be caught in the expanding gravity well simply ceased to exist. Their matter compressed into a point smaller than an atom. The second wave had time to scream electromagnetic bursts that might have been communications, or might have been death agonies before they'd have vanished into the hungry darkness. Tethanocri's surface began to crack as tidal forces stronger than those that had torn apart ancient moons pulled at its crust. The geometric cities that had stood for millennia collapsed inward, their inhabitants experiencing the unique horror of watching their homeworld's gravity reverse itself. Jump drive online, Santos reported, initiating emergency hyperspace transition. In 10 seconds, Keen watched the Vithkari homeworld die through his ship's sensors, its billion-year-old surface peeling away like the skin of a rotten fruit. The aliens' perfect formations broke apart as their vessels were dragged inexorably toward the artificial black hole's event horizon. As the apocalypse fled into hyperspace, King caught one final glimpse of Tethanocri disappearing into the gravity. Well, that would continue growing until it consumed the entire system. Humanity had just committed the first successful deicide in galactic history. The aliens' response would be absolute. The Vithkari retaliation fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of mechanical locusts. Over 1,000 vessels of war ranging from sleek destroyers to massive world killers that dwarfed anything in humanity's arsenal. They had come for the soul system, humanity's heart, and they brought with them weapons designed not merely to kill, but to ensure that nothing human would ever exist again. Admiral Voss watched the enemy armada deploy from the command bridge of Earth Defense Station Olympus, a massive orbital fortress bristling with every defensive technology humanity could devise. Around her, the combined home fleet maintained defensive positions, 600 ships representing humanity's final military reserves. Enemy composition analysis complete, reported Commander Santos, now serving as Voss's tactical coordinator after Kane's death in the Tethanocri operation. We're looking at 12 World Killer-class vessels, each carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Supporting elements include biomechanical fighters that appear to be piloted by processed human consciousness. The last detail hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The aliens weren't just using advanced technology, they were puppeting human minds extracted from captured populations, forcing humanity's own children to fight against their species' survival. What's our defensive status? Voss asked, her augmented reflexes already calculating the impossible odds. All planetary defense platforms are online and operational. Luna base reports ready for combat engagement. The Jupiter shipyards have been evacuated, but their automated defenses remain active. Santos paused, checking her tactical readouts. Admiral, even with optimal performance from all defensive systems, we're projecting 93% casualties within the first 4 hours of engagement. Voss nodded grimly. Everyone knew the mathematics. This wasn't a battle they could win through superior strategy or technology. This was humanity's last stand, and their only victory condition was making the aliens pay such a horrific price that they would lack the strength to hunt down the remaining human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Signal all ships, weapons free, no quarter. Target the world killers first if they breach our defensive perimeter. Earth dies regardless of how many of their smaller ships we destroy. The battle began with a symphony of destruction that could be seen from Earth's surface as brilliant flashes illuminating the night sky. Humanity's railgun platforms opened fire with kinetic projectiles, moving at significant fractions of light speed, creating deadly streams of depleted uranium that carved through space. Like solid lightning, the Vithkari responded with their signature weapons, coherent energy streams that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human perception could process. Where these beams touched human ships, matter simply ceased to exist in any recognizable form, leaving behind voids in space that slowly filled with exotic particles. Direct hit on the UES Defiance, Santos called out. The ship is Admiral. It's just gone. No debris, no energy signature. The Vithkari weapon erased it from reality. Voss watched her tactical display as ship after ship winked out of existence. The Marathon gone. The new Thermopylae gone. The last light gone. Each loss represented 500 to 2,000 crew members, human beings who had volunteered to die buying their species a few more minutes of existence. But humanity's sacrifice was not in vain. The massive railgun platforms were finding their mark, punching holes through Vithkari vessels with kinetic force that overwhelmed even their exotic defensive systems. The aliens were dying too, not in the clean erasure their weapons provided, but in spectacular explosions that painted space with debris and exotic matter. Enemy world killer approaching Earth's orbital perimeter. Santos reported, Luna base is engaging with all available weapons. On the tactical display, Voss watched humanity's lunar installations pour fire into the approaching alien. Dreadnought nuclear missiles, particle beams, and experimental plasma cannons all focusing on a single target. The Vithkari vessel's defensive screens flared and sparked under the assault, but it continued its inexorable approach toward Earth. Luna base reports critical damage to primary power systems. Came the transmission from Commander Yuki Tanaka. We can maintain fire for approximately 12 more minutes before total system failure. 12 minutes. Voss looked at the approaching world killer, calculating intercept times and remaining defensive assets. The mathematics were brutal. The alien vessel would reach weapons range of Earth. With 8 minutes to spare, all remaining fleet elements converge on the primary world killer. Ramming protocols authorized. Her voice carried across every communication. Channel in the system. This is our line. We hold here, or Earth dies. What followed was the most desperate naval engagement in human history. Ship after ship hurled themselves at the massive Vithkari world killer, their crews triggering a time adder. Self-destructs at point-blank range. The alien vessel's hull cracked and bled exotic matter as human ship. After human ship died against its flanks, each explosion weakening its defenses incrementally. The used Revenge managed to ram its prow directly into the world killer's primary weapon array before detonating, taking the alien's planet-cracking capability offline. The UES final answer sacrificed itself to destroy the enemy's primary engines, leaving the massive vessel dead in space. But the cost was devastating. Of the 600 ships that had begun the battle, fewer than 30 remained combat effective. Hundreds of thousands of human beings had died to stop a single enemy vessel. Admiral Santos said quietly, enemy reserves are moving to engage. We count 4 to 7 world killers still active, along with supporting elements. Voss looked at Earth hanging in space below them, its blue oceans reflecting the fires of battle. Somewhere down there, 8 billion human beings were watching the sky and waiting to learn whether their species would see another sunrise. Signal retreat order to all surviving vessels, she decided. Fall back to the Jupiter defense grid, we'll make our final stand there. As humanity's battered remnants fled deeper into their home system, the Vithkari advanced like a tide of technological death, their victory all but assured. But Voss had one last card to play, one final weapon that would either save humanity or ensure that nothing in the Sol system would survive the next 24 hours. The Jupiter defense grid represented humanity's final desperate gambit, a network of automated weapon platforms and converted civilian vessels clustering around the gas giant's orbital space. Among them, hidden within the massive infrastructure of the Ganymede shipyards, lay Project Ragnarok, humanity's attempt to weaponize a star. Admiral Voss stood in the command center of Defense Platform Mjolnir, watching the Vithkari fleet approach. With methodical certainty, the aliens had learned caution after the devastating cost of the first engagement, but their numbers remained overwhelming, nearly 1,800 vessels, against humanity's pathetic remnant of 43 functional ships. Status report on Ragnarok, she asked Dr. Ilyana Kozlov, the project's surviving lead scientist. The solar tap is fully operational, Admiral. We're successfully siphoning plasma directly from Sol's corona and channeling it through hyperspace conduits to the Jupiter grid. Kozlov's voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had been awake for 6 days straight, sustained only by stimulants and desperation. When activated, the system will essentially turn the entire orbital space around Jupiter into a miniature stellar event. Casualties, everything within to astronomical units, will be vaporized instantly. That includes us, the surviving fleet, and all of Jupiter's moons. Kozlov paused, checking her readings, but also every Vithkari vessel in the engagement zone. Mutual annihilation. Voss nodded grimly. It was the only victory condition humanity had left. How long until the alien fleet reaches optimal engagement range? 14 minutes, Admiral, reported Commander Santos. They're maintaining cautious approach vectors, probably expecting another Erebus-style deployment. Signal all ships, Voss ordered. Inform crew that voluntary evacuation pods are authorized for anyone who chooses not to participate in the final engagement. No shame in survival. She wasn't surprised when not a single pod launched. Humanity's survivors had passed beyond fear into something approaching transcendence. the absolute clarity that comes from accepting death in service of something greater than individual existence. The battle began with Vithkari long-range bombardment, their exotic energy weapons reaching across hundreds of thousands of kilometers, to begin systematically dismantling humanity's defensive installations. The first automated platforms died in silent flashes, their nuclear reactors becoming brief stars before fading into vacuum. But humanity's defenses had been designed by species that understood they were going to die. Every destroyed platform triggered fail-safe systems that activated backup weapons, turning debris fields into kinetic kill zones. The Vithkari advance slowed as they encountered layer after layer of defensive systems that seemed to multiply even as they were destroyed. Enemy formation adapting to our defensive strategies, Santos reported. They're using processed human consciousness to predict our tactical responses. Voss felt sick. Somewhere in that approaching fleet, human minds were being forced to devise strategies for their own species' extinction. The thought made her next decision easier. Dr. Kozlov, initiate Ragnarok. Full solar tap activation, Admiral. We still have 11 minutes before optimal enemy positioning. I said now. The hyperspace conduits opened like wounds in reality itself, and the fury of humanity's star poured through dimensional space to manifest around Jupiter. Plasma streams with temperatures exceeding 15 million degrees Celsius erupted from concealed projectors hidden throughout the orbital infrastructure, creating an expanding sphere of stellar fire that transformed the entire region into an artificial sun. The first wave of Vithkari vessels simply ceased to exist, their exotic matter holes unable to withstand temperatures that normally existed only in stellar cores. The second wave had time to attempt evasive maneuvers before they were consumed by the expanding plasma storm. But the aliens adapted with terrifying speed. Their remaining world killers began generating massive gravitational fields, literally bending space around themselves to deflect the stellar plasma streams. They were turning humanity's own weapon against itself, creating gravitational lenses that focused the solar fury back toward human positions. Defense. Platform Mjolnir taking critical damage, Santos reported as their installation shuddered under gravitational stress. Hull breach on levels 12 through 27. We're losing structural integrity. Voss watched 18 more human ships die as redirected solar plasma carved through their formations. The Vithkari were using her own weapon to destroy her remaining forces while maintaining their advance toward Earth. Admiral, Dr. Kozlov called out, her voice tight with terror and possibility. The gravitational manipulations they're using to redirect our plasma streams they're destabilizing. The hyperspace conduits. If the dimensional barriers collapse while the solar tap is active, what happens? The entire hyperspace network becomes a chain reaction. Every star connected to subspace navigation routes starts feeding energy into the cascading failure. We could potentially trigger stellar instability across multiple sectors of the galaxy. Voss looked at the tactical display showing the surviving Vithkari fleet. Still over 800 vessels, more than enough to complete humanity's extinction. Then she looked at Earth, hanging vulnerable and blue in the distance, home to the last 8 billion members of her species. The choice was simple: die as individuals, or take the entire galactic neighborhood with them. Do it, she ordered. Collapse the conduits. If we can't save humanity, we'll make sure nobody else gets to enjoy the galaxy either. Admiral, the scale of destruction could be. I don't care about the scale. I care about results. Voss's smile was sharp enough to cut space itself. The Vithkari wanted total war. Let's give them total war. Dr. Kozlov initiated the hyperspace cascade failure, and reality began to scream. The hyperspace cascade failure propagated across 3 sectors of the galaxy. Like a chain reaction of stellar death, stars that had burned peacefully for billions of years suddenly began feeding energy into dimensional tiers that shouldn't have been possible. Their fusion cores destabilizing as the fundamental structure of spacetime itself became compromised. Admiral Voss died watching the birth of an artificial supernova that consumed Jupiter, its moons, and everything within 5 astronomical units. The last thing her consciousness registered was the sight of 40 Vithkari world killers, vanishing into plasma hotter than the hearts of giant stars. Their crews experiencing the unique terror of being erased by weaponized physics. But death, as humanity had learned, was just another tactical consideration. 3 months later, Captain Zara Okoye stood on the bridge of the U.S. Phoenix, one of 78 human vessels that had survived the Sol catastrophe by being deployed to deep space reconnaissance missions. Around her, A crew of refugees from the outer colonies worked with desperate efficiency to coordinate humanity's response to what the galaxy was already calling the Terran Cascade, the largest artificial disaster in recorded galactic history. Damage assessment complete, reported her science officer, Dr. Mikhail Peterson. 17 stars have gone nova or supernova as a result of the hyperspace cascade failure. Estimated casualties across all species, 230 billion sentient beings. The numbers were staggering. Humanity's final gambit had turned 3 sectors of the galaxy into a graveyard, killing not just the Vithkari, but dozens of other species caught in the cascade's path. Entire civilizations had been reduced to stellar debris in the span of days. What about Vithkari survivors? Okoye asked. Approximately 4,000 vessels scattered across the galactic rim. Maybe 30 million individuals total. Peterson paused, consulting his readings. They've ceased all hostile activities and are broadcasting what our linguists interpret as surrender requests. Surrender. After systematically exterminating over 300 million humans, the aliens now wanted mercy. Signal the fleet, Okoye ordered. Begin hunter-killer operations. Every Vithkari vessel, every habitat, every individual. We finish what they started, Captain. Her communications officer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, interjected. We're receiving surrender transmissions from multiple Vithkari groups. They're offering reparations, technological exchanges, even voluntary exile from this galactic region. Okoye's expression remained carved from ice. Do you remember Colony Meridian, Lieutenant? 3 million civilians processed for their neural patterns while still conscious. Do you remember the children's voices in the final transmissions? Webb fell silent. Everyone aboard the Phoenix remembered those recordings, the sounds of humanity's youngest members, being systematically harvested for alien research. Their screams broadcast across hyperspace frequencies as psychological warfare. The Vithkari taught us a valuable lesson about total war. Okoye continued. When you commit genocide, you don't get to negotiate afterward. You don't get to surrender when the mathematics turn against you. You get exactly what you gave. The hunt lasted 18 months. Human fleets, reinforced by the surviving colonial navies and driven by a species-wide commitment to extinction. Warfare systematically tracked down every Vithkari refuge. They found them hiding in asteroid belts, sheltering in the ruins of dead civilizations, attempting to negotiate sanctuary with other species who wanted nothing to do with the architects of the Terran Cascade. Each encounter ended the same way, complete annihilation. The final Vithkari survivors were located in the Kepler Void, a region of empty space where they had constructed a desperate settlement around a rogue planet. The UES Retribution 2, flagship of humanity's vengeance fleet, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of their refuge system. Captain Elena Vasquez, formerly Dr. Vasquez of Project Samson, studied the pathetic collection of salvaged vessels and improvised habitats that represented the last remnant of the species that had attempted to exterminate humanity. Thermal readings indicated approximately 8,000 Vithkari survivors, including what appeared to be juveniles. They have children with them, her tactical officer reported. So did we, Vasquez replied. Signal the fleet. Standard extermination protocols. No survivors. The battle lasted 6 minutes. The Vithkari had no functional weapons. Their vessels cobbled together from debris and desperation. They died as they had lived with perfect efficiency, but without honor. As the last alien habitat broke apart under sustained railgun fire, humanity's long war finally ended. The galaxy's first successful genocide had been answered with the galaxy's first successful counter-genocide, leaving behind only stellar graveyards and the mathematical certainty that species-level warfare was a game with no winners. But in the ruins of Sol System, something unprecedented began to happen. The hyperspace cascade had torn holes in dimensional space that were slowly healing, and as they healed, they were creating stable wormhole networks that connected distant regions of the galaxy. Humanity's weapon of last resort had accidentally revolutionized galactic transportation. 5 years after the Terran Cascade, human exploration fleets were using the wormhole network to spread across the galaxy, faster than any species in recorded history. Colonies were established in regions that had been impossibly distant. Resources were extracted from systems that had never known sentient life, and humanity began the process of claiming everything the Vithkari had tried to deny them. Captain Okoye, now Admiral of the Colonial Expansion Fleet, stood on the observation deck of the UES New Earth as it emerged from a cascade-borne wormhole into a pristine star system with 12 habitable worlds. Around her, the next generation of human colonists prepared to build something that had never existed before, a civilization that had been forged in the fires of total war and tempered by the absolute certainty that survival required the complete elimination of existential threats. Status report on the Andromeda expedition, she asked her science officer. Long-range scouts report successful establishment of the first extragalactic colony. The wormhole network appears to extend beyond our galactic boundaries. Dr. Peterson smiled with the confidence of a species that had turned its greatest defeat into ultimate victory. At current expansion rates, human civilization will span multiple galaxies within a century, Okoye nodded, watching the star that would soon warm humanity's newest worlds. The Vithkari had wanted to process human consciousness, to study what made the species dangerous enough to require extinction. They had learned late that humanity's true danger wasn't technological or military, it was the absolute commitment to survival that transformed genocide into expansion, defeat into exploration, and extinction into empire. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, not through conquest, but through the simple application of superior extinction protocols. When faced with total war, humanity had chosen to redefine what total actually meant, and in the cold mathematics of species survival, that had made all the difference. The stars burned brighter now, their light carrying human voices across impossible distances, singing the songs of a civilization that had looked into the abyss of extinction and decided to renovate it as a highway to forever. The war was over, the expansion had just begun.